How is everyone today? Today we're going to focus on a bit more of the responsive capabilities of building motion graphics templates in PremierePro. We're going to talk a little bit about copy and pasting some of the elements of the motion graphics templates that you can build from Premiere directly into After Effects. And what this allows you to do really is have the ability to, again, kind of expand upon the animation and leveraging things like expressions, and just make them sort of a bit more intricate on the After Effects side. And then, of course, you can decide exactly what you want to be edited or modified for your editor on the Premiere side when they're using those templates. We'll showcase a little bit more in AdobeStock, and I'll kind of take you through some of that. And then at the very end, I figured I would show you, I bookmarked a couple of different sites that have some various expressions that you can use. Also, I'll show you some of my, some older After Effects compositions of mine that I've since turned into motion graphics templates, because that's one of the really cool things is that effectively, if there's a graphical animated element that you use over and over again that you've built in After Effects, you can turn that into a motion graphics template. It doesn't have to be a lower third necessarily. It doesn't have to be a title sequence or some kind of animated transition. It can really be anything. So I'm going to show you that and kind of show you once again, step you through just how to build that in After Effects, choose what bits you want animated or edited or editable by your editor, and then export those to a shared CC library. What I thought we'd start first with is, again, we're going to sort of build upon the responsive nature of working with motion graphics templates on the Premiere side. Last week, again, I showcased to you building some of these and even some of the default ones that we ship with inside the Essential Graphics panel. I want to point out again that while you can access motion graphics templates in AdobeStock, we also give you a whole bunch of them directly inside the Essential Graphics panel, which are saved locally with the app. And you can find all of those here. Now, again, if we were to go to libraries, in libraries, we have the option to search AdobeStock. And if we wanted to do something like look at lower third templates, we select templates. It's going to pull those up for us right here. And now this kind of gives you a pretty good idea of some of the various options that you have. And there's some really amazing content, both premium and free. And some of the free stuff, I mean, a lot of the free stuff, in fact, I would really dare to say all of it that I've pulled in is really good because we're curating these things. We want them to be good. We want them to be useful for you. But one of the things that are sort of important when building these on the Premiere side is particularly if you're going to be sharing or reusing, and particularly in this world where we're constantly creating content for different sized screens, right? Where here you can see I'm working in 16:9, but then I've also got a version of this which maybe is square, or perhaps there's a version of this that's vertical. So if I build a template, if I build a lower third, if I build something that needs to crawl across the screen or animate across the screen in a particular position of the frame, I want to ensure that it's in that same position regardless of the aspect ratio, regardless of the frame size. So here what I want to do is, first showcase to you a very simple motion graphics template that I built up earlier. So let me go ahead and go to my library here, and I'm going to pull this one in, which I titled MOG Non-Responsive. Okay, so if we wind back and just play this, a little bit of this here. Okay, so nothing fancy here, just a really basic lower third. And if we select this and go into our Essential Graphics, it's 3 layers, right? So we've got our shape layer. And by the way, I showed this last week, but these can all be renamed. So you could call this, L3 bar, whatever, however you title that shape layer there. And then we've got our second line of text here, first line of text here, okay? So right now, in this very simple animated lower third, and there is some animation. If we go up to effects controls here, it's all just basic opacity. So you can see on the MOGRT text, we've got some opacity keyframes, right? Similarly on the Moog music text, same thing. And then on the shape layer, same thing as well. This is also opacity keyframes down here. I always want this to appear in this exact position in the bottom left-hand corner of the frame, all right? So here's the 16:9 widescreen version of this, right? Well, if I don't enable any of the responsive design positioning functions. And this is basically what you would have dealt with prior to this latest update, CC 2018, if you built these in Premiere. If I take this same template, let's take this out of here, and let me move over to my vertical timeline. So this is a version of this video that actually we showcased in June with the first edition of this How to Make Great Videos series. So you can see that same shot there. And I want to apply that same lower third to, this bottom left-hand corner down here. Let's go back over to libraries. I'll take this Moog no responsiveness. Can't talk today. And I'll place it here. Let's go ahead and play this back. All right, now forgetting this other line of text right here, let's just take that out. Do you see a problem? All right, first of all, let's just go ahead and make this like full screen. Somehow that bottom layer of text is no longer even inside the lower third bar frame, and it isn't in the right, it's kind of like in the middle of the frame to begin with. So, okay, now again, previously we could fix that, but the whole point of having those responsive functions is that now we can take that template. And the cool thing is we can actually take templates that we built a month ago and enable them to be responsive so that they automatically appear in that same position every time. Let's go ahead and drag this back in. Here we have our template. Let's go into Essential Graphics. Okay, so first and foremost, what do we want to do? Well, again, we want to position or pin certain elements of these to the video frame. Now, what I wanted to do actually was show you that this was sort of based off of another template that we had, one of our default modern lower thirds ones. And if you ever get tripped up, I highly recommend taking a look at some of these, because these, in fact, have responsive elements as well. Now, this one has a combination of responsive position and responsive time. We know it has responsive time because we can actually see, if I expand the view here, these gray areas that you're seeing on the motion graphics template clip, these represent intro and outro durations using our responsive design time feature. And if you look over here, you can actually see we've got a 16 frame intro duration and an 8 frame outro duration. Now what that means is that if we go over here into effects controls again, any animation that exists in the gray areas here will always be preserved. And actually it looks like this insert title text, this might be right on the edge, so maybe that's okay. These actually look like they're right on the edge. They should be fine. So anything that exists in the gray area will always conform to that 16 frame duration, regardless of if you stretch the template out for 30 seconds or 6 seconds, that animation will always be 16 frames long. All right, or it'll take 16 frames for all of that animation to happen. And similarly, at the end here, same thing. This animation, which is, I guess, the text probably flying off, if I had to guess, yeah, that will always happen over 8 frames. All right, and just to showcase that to you here, and why this is so brilliant too is because this allows you this sort of very flexible, stretchy, compress, expand nature, so that the animation, you never have to re-keyframe anything, right? So you can see, again, it flies on over 16 seconds, it lingers, and then it flies off over 8 frames. If I make this super short, all right, let's just move this one out of the way, move this back over here, play this back again, 16 frames, 8 frames, okay? So that's responsive design time. But what you also have here are elements of responsive design positioning, okay? And you can see that by taking a look here inside our layers panel. So for instance, this episode background, which is, you can see it's this white sort of filled in rectangle. This is pinned to the insert title here layer, which is pinned to the video frame, okay? So this, the box, is pinned to the text layer, okay? This bracket is pinned to the insert name here text layer, specifically to the left-hand side. All right? So that bracket will always conform to the left-hand side of that insert name here text, which again is pinned to the video frame. Okay? And similarly, the bracket right is pinned to this text layer and specifically this position right here, okay, on the right-hand side. So what that means is that it's always going to appear in that same position, always, regardless of what kind of frame you put it in, regardless of whether it's, again, vertical or square or anything like that, all right? So if you ever kind of forget how these things work, this is a good one to look at because it has both options here. You can find this under Essential Graphics, Lower Thirds, and this is Modern Lower Third 2 lines. Having shown you that now, let's go back over to my libraries here, and I'll take a slightly different MOGRT that I created. Just move this one out of the frame here. In fact, maybe I'll use this little one that I built for Adobe Max. All right, we'll drag this in. And we're going to modify the text, obviously. All right. So this one here, let's go over to Essential Graphics. I'm going to change the text. Okay. This one in particular, you can see it's got a little simple animation, kind of flies up from the bottom. It's in the bottom right. And this one has the shape layer, which is pinned to the text layer. Okay? All 4 points of the text layer. And the text layer specifically is pinned to the video frame, but the bottom right-hand corner of the video frame. Okay? This is at its simplest level here, trying to show you these pinning relationships. So what that now means, that if I go back over to our Snapchat version here, let's get rid of this other one that wasn't responsive. Get rid of that. Go into Libraries. Let's grab this Max created Last Horizon one over here. All right, and drag this in. Now what you see is that this appears in the bottom right of the frame exactly where it's supposed to. Just like that. All right. And similarly, if we were to take this, let's take this again. Let's take this out of here. Let's change the sequence settings. We'll make this 1080 by 1080. Okay. So we're now in a square format. Back over to our libraries here. Drag in our graphic. Wind it over. And once again, it appears in the exact same position that it's supposed to. All right, bottom right-hand corner. So responsive positioning really gives you an enormous amount of flexibility to ensure that your templates will work across any frame size, any aspect ratio. Now, Bronwyn, who's in the chat here, created this really cool little animation that I think, again, even further evidences what you can do with pinning here. So this one, if we take a look, and by the way, go back into Essential Graphics. Now this is not, this is kind of to that point where you can really turn anything into a motion graphics template. So if you take a look here, this is a little, it's a solar system, right? So we've got the sun, and then we've got, and I guess this is Venus here, rotating around the sun. And then we've got the Earth, which I should recolor blue to make that one a little bit easier to understand, rotating around the sun. And then we've got the moon rotating around the Earth. So first, let me just come over here. I'm just going to change the stroke color of Earth. Let's put that in blue so you can kind of see that. Okay. So sun is yellow, Venus orange, Earth blue, moon white. Okay. And obviously we've got some animation in the form of rotation. And you can actually see that over here in the effects controls. So shape, Earth, is performing multiple rotations over time, okay? But where it gets really interesting is how you sort of set up those pinning relationships. So again, when we start with the sun is our center, our focal point. The sun is pinned to the video frame right here. Venus is also pinned to the video frame. The Earth is pinned to the sun, but specifically to the upper left-hand corner of the sun, okay, as it rotates. And then the moon is pinned to the Earth. Again, in this case, pinning it to a particular corner position of that circle. Not that that matters so much, but again, it's kind of maintaining that same position as it rotates around. All right? So if we wanted to at this point, again, this could become a motion graphics template. So I'm going to export this as a motion graphics template. And I'll call this Universe. Okay. Now, again, I wouldn't necessarily want this as a motion graphics template per se. But the idea here is that I could take that. Oh, by the way, if we hover over this, drag it down over here. All right. And now you can see I've got my rotating solar system over top of my synthesizers. Okay. And if I click on this and go into Essential Graphics, again, all of these fields remain editable. Okay. And you can see all of the pinning relationships still intact. We had another layer that was turned off there. Another cool feature which I neglected to mention there is that, again, it'll also save the state of where you left those particular layers inside of the Essential Graphics panel. So really super cool there. Now, just to kind of showcase, again, we did some of this last week. I think it bears repeating again. Setting up relationships for things like, in this case, like a bounding box around the text, okay? Just kind of re-emphasizing the workflow here for some of the responsive elements. So again, we've got this vast horizon text, which you can see here, all right? Which, let me go ahead and twirl this up and pull up the vast horizon text, where we've got some very simple position keyframes, okay? And these position keyframes and opacity keyframes exist inside this duration window of 1 second and 5 frames. So this will always animate on over 1 second and 5 frames, okay? And if we dive a little deeper into the actual layers, we've got that shape layer, right? Well, you can probably guess that the shape layer is pinned to the vast horizon text layer. And sure enough, it is pinned to vast horizon. Again, all 4 corners of the vast horizon. Now, why is that specifically? Because that box will grow or shrink based on how much text you have typed in there. So if I were to go ahead and select our text here, we'll call this the end. Notice the box changes. All right? The end, tonight at 10. That's kind of funny. Right? The box size changes accordingly, right? Responsive, right? The box, the shape layer is growing or expanding based on what you type inside of there, based on how you pin it. If we look at tonight at 10, this is simply pinned to the video frame, no specific position at all. By the way, pin to video frame, that's the default. Okay, that is the default. There's no like no pin. If you don't select a position, and you can see here, you can select all 4 corners by clicking in the center here. You can individually enable or disable the corners right here. You get the idea. And similarly, if we wanted, you know, that to say animate off, and we wanted that to animate off over a specific period of time, we could do the same thing with that by setting an outro duration here. So if we wanted this to animate off over, again, like say before we had 8 or maybe 16 frames, something like that, notice how it adds that gray area right there. So here, as tonight at 10 flies on, let's go ahead and just add a keyframe so you can see that doing its thing there. We'll set an opacity keyframe here of 100. Wind it back over here, drop it down to nothing, and all right, like that. But again, even if we expand this out much longer, it's still the same 16 frames. It's always the same 16 frames. If we drag this in, still 16 frames. The difference is that anything that you animate in the middle here, these keyframed animations, in this case, we've got the position keyframes of this tonight at 10 text, that gets stretched or squeezed over time, okay? So really simple, really easy to build these elements, and this is what makes them reusable and shareable. Likewise, if I were to take this and let's say put this same one here, let's make this into a template. Okay, we'll call this the end and click OK on that. Go to our another project. By the way, this also highlights another feature in PremierePro right now, multiple open projects. So let's go over to this one here. Or go to our square version, libraries. Here's the one we just created. All right, drag this in. Right. Notice again, it appears in the exact position where it's supposed to, in the center. It flies on exactly as it should. But remember, because we have all of these responsive elements, I can change the text here. Let's go ahead and do that. Make my edits, and it doesn't break the animation. So cool. And to build these things in After Effects, if you know what you're doing, it's fairly simple. If you don't, this is really a very elegant way to just augment what you already know in terms of keyframing and animation on the Premiere side. So now what I'd like to do is showcase to you a couple of things that you can do on the After Effects side, again, taking some existing templates and showcasing a couple of different expressions, but also highlight the ability to sort of start a basic template here on the Premiere side and finish it on the After Effects side. So let's find another cool clip. Okay, this is a good one. I like this shot right here. Definitely handheld, needs some warp stabilizer on there. I'll shrink this one up, in fact. So let's go back to my libraries, and I'm going to grab my MOGRT version and fly this on, okay? So once again, if we take a look at this template, it's real simple. It's 3 layers. Now, maybe we wanted to leverage some of those animation presets that I showed you in episode 1 of this series. I've got this very basic thing in Premiere that already has some animation. Maybe I even add some effects here that can also be respected on the After Effects side. And maybe I'll show that to you now. All of that can be copy-pasted from Premiere and then brought into After Effects. Really cool. So again, it kind of just expands your skill level in authoring these motion graphics templates. So let's go ahead and, yeah, I'll add a really simple effect to this. Let's go to our effects controls. And maybe we'll do something like a blur. All right. So again, blurriness will be 0 right about here. And when it starts, we'll just have it like a super blurry. Okay. Something like that. Okay. So now I've got our Gaussian blur and our 3 layers of content here. And now I want to do more with this on the After Effects side. Well, with our motion graphics template, MOGRT selected, let's just simply copy. Okay. Let's bounce over to After Effects. I'm going to make a new comp, and we'll call this MOGRT new. It's 1920, 1080, that's fine, 24 frames. Let's make this, let's just make it like 10 seconds. Okay. And now I'm simply going to paste into this comp, which is going to basically create a nested composition of the motion graphics template that we just built. And you can see that here, all right? So to see the elements of that nested comp, double click on this, And here you have it. And now when we play this back in After Effects, notice we've got the exact same thing with the same blur, with the same animation. If we hit UU to reveal all of the keyframed animation on our various layers, here you can see we've got our opacity keyframes. Again, if we do it here on Gaussian blur, you can see our blur keyframes for the blurriness, etc., etc. So it's all here. So if we wanted to expand on this even further, now we have the ability to do that. So that's just a direct copy-paste from a Premiere Pro authored motion graphics template into After Effects, okay? Now, I should point out, you can copy them with the responsive capabilities added as well. A couple things I've seen that are a little weird on that. That's still in dev as far as I'm concerned, so we'll see some changes there probably. But anything that you author on the Premiere side, you can copy paste, create a new composition here. It'll build that nested comp, and now you've got access to all of those individual layers here inside of After Effects. Here, let's grab another one. Maybe. Oh, actually, no. I wanted to show you this one here, built in After Effects, that was not already something that exists as a motion graphics template. So this is something that when we were first kind of developing this MOGRT concept, you might remember something called live text templates. So here's one of them that one of my friends made for me, and I love this one. Now this one, what makes this one super cool is that this leverages another one of many different expressions known as source rect time. And if you take a look here, you'll notice that you've got this circle that's growing, and it's growing based on the length of the text in the first last name text layer and title caption as well. Source rect at time. So you can see here this expression has been applied to the size of the shape path of that name ring. And this gets leveraged a couple of times, the same exact expression in this very motion graphics template. Now, again, this was built before we had motion graphics templates as we know them today. But I still want to use this. I want to reuse this and leverage this on multiple variations of things that I'm working on inside of Premiere. So this is a pre-existing After Effects composition. Actually, previously, I had been dynamically linking this from After Effects into Premiere, which, by the way, you can still do. You'll probably find, though, that the performance of building the MOGRT and using that in Premiere is a little bit more robust and it's a little bit faster. So let's turn this into a template. So once again, if you're not in the Essential Graphics workspace, you can go ahead and select that. You can see I'm in it up here. You can also just pull up the Essential Graphics panel here inside of After Effects. In Essential Graphics, tell it which comp we want to look at. And in this case, it's this one here called right lower third. We'll give it a name, right L3 circle, resp for responsive. And actually, I'll make this a little shorter so we can see all the text. Right L3 circle resp, okay? Set a poster frame, very essential, so that we know what it is that we'll be dragging in. So we can just find kind of a good frame that we want here. You can see it's also got some blur on the individual characters there. So maybe this frame looks pretty good. Set poster frame, and it adds it there. Again, that background is just is not being made part of this motion graphics template. And then to allow us to see what functions we can make editable for the editor, for the person in Premiere, we have to click on Solo Supported Properties. So when I do that, now, again, everything that is editable in the motion graphics template is revealed to me inside the composition panel. So obviously, we want the source text to be editable. So I can drag this in, and we can call this, first line text, something like that, okay? If we wanted to, any of these additional parameters, again, opacity, here's the name ring. If we wanted to adjust the color of those things, we could do that. Entirely up to you, the various fill colors, the stroke color, all of these things are editable. So again, we could put in ring fill color, all right? currently set to white, make it editable to the editor here. Here's our second line of text. Drag that in. Okay. Second line text. And then we could add a comment. These features relate to other animated elements. Okay. And then we can drag in other things. You can see that you've got stuff here. So that effect on the text here looks like they're using the, or that actually might, is that on the, yeah, that's on the source text there. So we've got some camera lens blur happening on there. All right, blur radius adjustments. Again, that could be editable if we wanted to. You've got the additional shape layer around that. You get the idea. So we could drag in any and all of these elements, make them editable here. Go ahead and export this as a motion graphics template. I'll let it save this project. Jason's library, we'll stick it there. Now again, just to point out something else that we talked about before, we could save it to the Essential Graphics panel, but by doing that, we're saving it directly to within the application itself. That's fine, except that now it's only accessible on that installation. The other thing, which is a bit more elegant if you're trying to share these but you're not using libraries for whatever reason, is you can just save out the file to a local drive. So you can tell it where you want it to go. And maybe let's do that this time. We didn't do that the last time. Let's go ahead and browse. So this will be titled Right L3 Circle Resp. Let's just place it on the desktop, okay? File format, motion graphics template, and save it. All right, so you can see it's going to be .MOGRT. Click OK on that. All right, verifying typekit fonts. Now again, we talked about that before. Really a good practice if you're building shareable, reusable motion graphics templates to leverage typekit fonts. Reason being is that anyone who's using CC, if they don't have the font that you use to create that template, they'll be able to automatically synchronize those fonts to their system so that the template that they built looks and works as designed. So typekit fonts are awesome. Now, if you're using a font that, you know, everyone in your organization uses that's not typekit, but it's on everyone's machine, not a problem, right? It'll still work. It'll still find it. The issue is if you've got a font that no one else has, you create a template, they try and use it, you're going to get that missing font notification, and then you'll have to replace it with something else. So always a good idea to go with typekit unless everyone has the same shared font. So back over on the Premiere side, let's go ahead and turn this one off. Now, if we go up to Essential Graphics, you'll notice that we have this option here to install a motion graphics template, okay? So let's go ahead and do just that. So we'll go to Open, Desktop. There's the MOGRT that we just created right there. Click Open. All right. And here it is. Now, by the way, I saved it into lower thirds because it's a lower third. If I wanted it to sort of be at the root, you know, here's what we did one of these. I did one of these on another stream last week. Here it is at the root, but it's a lower third. So, you know, trying to keep things organized, it now appears inside my collection of lower thirds, right? So I can take this, I can drag it in, I can wind it back. Okay, and when I click on that, again, what's editable? So let's just make this MOG Music 1981. Okay. And you can see how the circle dimensions shift based on the width of the text. Okay. And by the way, again, note the performance. We've got that blur going on there, the animation. It's fantastic. And this is at full quality. Now, not everyone's going to get that same performance based on the system you're editing on, but it's just the idea that you, with motion graphics templates and in the CC 2018 release, now that we actually have the engine that powers all of that on the After Effects side inside of Premiere, as you scrub through it, your performance is going to get better and better. You don't actually even have to have After Effects running to make that better. And in many cases, you don't have to even have After Effects installed now in the latest CC 2018 to use After Effects generated motion graphics templates. The one exception there would be things that have Cinema4D elements, and there's a few others. And if they do, yes, you need After Effects installed because it installs Cinema4D. If you don't have Cinema4D, it wouldn't be able to play those back. Okay. Now, just talking about that, let's see here. So this is, again, just something that I thought maybe this might be cool to create as a template, okay? And this is this really cool Cinema4D Jace's Places animated logo, all right? Again, something that I'm probably going to reuse on subsequent videos. This was never intended to be a template, and it's actually using the new Cinema4D Render Engine inside of After Effects. So here, if we just go to our settings under 3D Renderer, you can see that we're using the Cinema4D Render Engine. Now, if we went to our classic 3D, you can kind of see the difference. This is what we refer to as that 2.5D, where it's really just projecting flat 2D imagery in a 3D environment. But now, using the Cinema4D engine, you can see right away, now we actually have extrusion and depth and all the other real sort of 3D elements here. But this, too, can now become a motion graphics template very, very easily. So let's go ahead and select this one. And this is called this one here, Jace's Places. All right. We can set the poster frame right there. Solo supported properties. Now, in the case of this, I don't want any of this editable. This is just my animated logo that I'm going to use for every show, every time, right? So again, I can take this and I can hand this off to my editor and go, yep, here's the intro that you need to place over top of everything, and be done with it. If you wanted them to be able to modify colors, and you can actually see here, my friend Mark, who authored this, he's got a separate layer of all those expression effects. So in fact, let's go ahead and drag in the various colors here. Okay, we'll call this JPS color. And this one we'll call this SELAC, CELAC color. I'm just referring to the letters that it applies to. And of course it applies to the J as well. You get the idea. I'll drag the other ones in here too. Okay. Now we've got all of these color controls. So maybe that's the only editable thing. And we'll change those colors based on the content of the episode. All these other elements in here that you see revealed, all of this, right? All of these various light options can be changed by the editor if you wanted them to be able to change them. You don't have to. Let's give it a name. Call this JP Intro. All right. Export this as a template. We'll resave the project. And now let's go ahead and place this in my library, because I will want to reuse this over and over again. And I want to be able to access this no matter where I'm logging in. So I'll choose Jason's library, click OK on this. Again, verifying typekit font. There's no typekit fonts in here because this is all Illustrator vectors that were converted into shape layers here directly in After Effects. Back over to Premiere, into our libraries. I mean, you have to love the flexibility of how these things work, right? We just created that, saved it, never intended to be a motion graphics template, but now it is. And now it's an element that I have with me anywhere that I'm editing. Can't emphasize enough the power of CC libraries now for video editors. We stepped it up when we added sort of video and stock a year and a half ago, whenever. But now with MOGRTs, I don't know how I would do this now without it. This is really my go-to for anything animated, anything graphical that I want to use and reuse over time. So again, I could take this and let's get rid of this one here. Let's drag this out. Grab our Jace's Places down here. Okay. And drag that in. It's probably going to take a second to to bring that graphic in, but, oh, sorry, got to turn that layer on. There it is. Okay. And just like that. Okay. And this is obviously a little bit longer than our content here, so I can drag this back out. All right. That's it. Now, once again, this is using the Cinema4D Render Engine. So this is a bit heavier, right? So again, as we scrub through this, note how the animation is starting to become real time. Just that alone. I mean, look at the detail on this. That is freaking crazy, because you don't get that. You just, I'm amazed. I'm amazed. I'm using this all the time. And the more you scrub through it, again, it's caching those frames. That performance gets better and better. Wow, that actually looks really good. I wish I had authored that. I wish I had built that. Mark W., if you're watching, I still love this logo. All right. So really simple, really cool. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're just going to go and talk a little bit more again about a couple of resources for additional expressions, as well as accessing more motion graphics templates via AdobeStock. So this is just one resource. Bounce over to this. I found a bunch of these a while ago, and I've watched some videos from these guys, Cinecom.net. You can check out their, you can check out their site and their various videos on YouTube as well. What's great about these is, again, they've given you the code. They've given you the expressions that you can just copy paste from here directly into your own After Effects comps. So again, cinecom.net, you can find these. Here's one that, again, it allows you to create an animation, apply the below expression to the property of keyframe to make the animation bounce. So bouncing animation, here's something that'll allow you to do that. Wiggle, again, it can be applied to any property, but works great on position to create natural camera movement. And as we discussed with Wiggle before, again, let me go ahead and close this one. Here's that lower third that we made last week, right? So once again, notice we've got our JP logo down there. We've got the wiggle position. So if we wanted to wiggle frantically, by the way, there's also motion blur on that, if you'll recall. Again, wind that back, play it, the animation flies in. Okay, again, it's caching frames, so give it a second here. But notice now that JP logo is really frantically wiggling. We made that an editable parameter. Look, you even see sort of the stop frame with the motion blur on it. I just love this. So that's the same wiggle applied to position and scale. The other thing, as mentioned here, and I talked about this in episode 1, is you can apply this wiggle expression to the position of just a handheld or tripod video to give it kind of some natural handheld movement. You know, again, if you really increase the wiggle parameters there, you can make it look sort of very, you know, Blair Witch Project-y. Wow, that's a really old reference. You get the idea. Squash and stretch, pretty common one here. Again, apply it to scale. Works best on icons or bullet points. That's where you kind of get that, and you'll see a bunch of the motion graphics templates in AdobeStock actually leverage squash and stretch. You see this with lower thirds and things all the time, you know, where you have like ovals that kind of bounce and expand. Motion tail is just that. You can apply it to a single animation and it'll give you a trajectory of various subsequent iterations depending upon how many times you copy the layer. And it tells you exactly what to do here. You duplicate the layer after applying this expression, and it's going to give you this tail, this trajectory of motion. Super cool. This one is really, really useful. This creates a timer, a countdown timer. So I actually, in fact, I was meaning to do it today and I didn't get a chance to. And you can see, all you do is create a text layer and apply this to the source text attribute. That's it. You don't have to do anything else. This expression does all the work, and it'll either count up or count down. Super cool. And there's many, many more out there. I highly recommend going to Cinecom, cinecom.net to check it out. Also, if you just Google After Effects expressions, you'll find a whole bunch of them. These are just a couple of the ones that they've given you here. They've got more on the site as well, but I highly recommend checking those out. So back into Premiere Pro for a minute, just to re-showcase searching and working inside of Adobe Stock here. We've been working on lower thirds, but there's lots of different elements available to you inside of Adobe Stock. So if we were looking at things like transitions, okay, this pulls up some various transitions and some really cool graphical ones. You can see premium and free. Now, what you don't see here is how do I see a preview? So currently we don't have previews of the motion graphics templates here in Premiere Pro, but let's just take one that we like here. I kind of like this. This looks pretty cool. If you double click on it inside of the Adobe Stock panel here, this now takes you to the site where it'll show you the full animation, okay? And it's also going to give you the duration and the various attributes. So this one is really cool. So first of all, it's 1080p, 9 different animation styles. So what that means is there's a slider, an editable slider inside the template that allows you to choose, okay, I want to do this kind of kaleidoscopic triangle or square or circle. Oh, I love this one. Yeah, we're going to license this one right now. I see myself using this right now, okay? And we're going to check out how it's editable. Custom color options. Okay, really cool there. Oh, and that reminds me too. I didn't even think about that. My JP intro. Yeah. So all my various colors. So if I wanted to change these, all right, these should be dynamically changing, hopefully. Yep, there we go. Right, you see it changing right on screen, right before our eyes. Well, apparently they've done the same thing with this one, right? Custom color options. Easy to customize, optimize for Premiere Pro CC. Let's check it out. Go back over to Premiere, Libraries. Let's get rid of our selection here. And there we can see it. Dynamic geometric transitions, created in After Effects, licensed. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this off. Let's turn off that one. Let's go ahead and drag this in and see what we have here. Oh, whoops, I dragged it onto that layer. That's fine. Super cool. Now, by the way, again, notice it goes almost into full real time without even doing anything. I mean, that's what just constantly amazes me about these templates. You gotta remember, this is an After Effects generated template. This is not a Premiere generated one, which means it's using After Effects engine to play back. After Effects by nature is not a real-time app. So the fact that we're getting this kind of performance really tells you how these things and how functional these are inside of Premiere. Go over to Essential Graphics and look at that. Just like we were saying, just like you just saw with my Jace's Places one, we've got 5 different color swatches that we can modify here. And then we've got our transition styles. So here's the square one, number 2. Ooh, the circle, that's cool. Now again, it's got to recache those frames because we're changing the animation. Oh, I love that. So good. All right, let's see some of the other options here. And I love how there's opacity. So again, this is meant to be used as a transition. Let's just scoot ahead a couple frames. So that's circle, a different styled triangle. Oh, so there's variations on the same theme. I see. Oh, look at that. That's cool. Right? I love that. I love these little... You know, and you might be looking at these and thinking, I can make those. I could do that in After Effects. Yeah, I could. It would never look like that because I don't have the design sense. And it would take me forever because I don't have the design sense. But here's something else to consider. Now, today, we have our curated and master artist collection in Adobe Stock. Coming soon, you too will be able to contribute your own motion graphics templates to Adobe Stock as well. So we will let you know and keep you posted when that happens. All right, let's just take a look at the last couple of variations here. Oh, super cool. Oh, look, this is like totally different style. So we went from full geometric shapes, right? I mean, this looks like stuff that you're seeing on, various series and Netflix. And I mean, this is high-end stuff, beautifully designed. I mean, that's the thing, just great design right at your fingertips from within AdobeStock. And as mentioned, if we wanted to look for more lower thirds, something like that, we can type in lower thirds. Again, we want to see what this looks like. Here's a free one. Go ahead and double click here. Takes us right to the site again. This is by Steve from Digital Spatula. Gives you all the various attributes here. Okay. You can view the preview in a separate window. That's kind of nice, that little glow, the little Andrew Kramer-esque right there. Okay. Professional glossy sports lower third. And this is free. So much good free content. I want to point out too, again, that you've got all of your various options when searching on these. So if we just went to something like templates, again, lower thirds, search on them here. You can see all the filters, so we can choose to filter only Premiere Pro. If you just want to see free ones, that's that first $sign. And this is now showcasing to you all the various free ones that we have, okay? Some really fantastic ones in here, both created in Premiere and After Effects, some of them responsive. And then you've got all the various subcategories, really easy. Click and download, license directly to your library. Now, one last thing before we end today that I wanted to showcase to you. Someone asked in the last stream, and I can't remember if I got to it or not, was what if we don't have any library set up and just need to build one? Okay, well, from within your libraries panel, and by the way, I just happened to open up that panel under the window menu and dock it next to Essential Graphics. You'll see that we have the option here to create new library. So if you do that, let's go ahead and just build one right now. Give it a name. We can just call this lower thirds. Someone was asking me, can you have folders inside of a library? You can't, but there's no reason you can't just have multiple libraries that are basically folders in and of themselves, right? So I can have a new library of just lower third elements, all right? And now, if I go back to the site here, let's go back to AdobeStock, and let's say that there's, let's find one of these. Okay, that's kind of cool. All right, go to this one here. It's free. What library do I want to save it to? It's not finding my library. Okay, save to lower thirds. There it is. Okay. Oh, and did I not title that correctly? Give it a second to get in here. Okay, it's synchronizing. Give it a second. There it is. Okay, boom. So you can also build the library right on the fly, right inside of AdobeStock. That makes it even easier if you don't have it, okay? On that note, I think it's a perfect time to say goodbye. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this 3-part series, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks with another 3-part series of how to make good videos great, focusing on audio workflows. So if you've got your questions and you want to see specific audio workflows discussed, now is the time. Tweet us. Tweet us. You can find me at Twitter at Beetlejace right here. You can also tweet to the Adobe Premiere Pro account, the Adobe Creative Cloud, and CC Audio and Video account. Put your questions in there. Those are the kinds of things that I'll show, and it's going to be all different types of audio workflows. And following that, we'll also be doing an additional 3-part series on leveraging color workflows inside of Premiere Pro and After Effects. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.